Europe reunited, a union of 25 countries poised to agree its first ever constitution, common security policies, a single currency and a newly empowered parliament. At the same time, the EPP group is celebrating its 50th anniversary. It's more than just a happy coincidence. Europe's extraordinary evolution is inseparable from Christian democratic thinkers and statesmen, from the struggle and eventual victory over fascism and National Socialism. This man was crucial. Robert Schuman, who was then France's foreign minister. On May the 9th, 1950, he launched the idea of a coal and steel community.
Europe will not be built at a single stroke, nor all at once. It will come from practical achievements, solidarity in practice.
The Treaty of Paris, signed a year later, traced the outline of the future European Union. A high authority, what would become the European Commission, a Council of Ministers, and a Common Assembly, which met for the first time in September 1953. It was made up of 78 parliamentarians nominated by the 6 founder members of the European Community: Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Luxembourg and the Netherlands. As soon became clear, these first European deputies had a vision of a different sort of politics, a vision shared by millions of people on the war-ravaged continent. The ECSC Assembly's first president was Alcide De Gasperi, leader of Italy's Democrazia Cristiana. He spoke of ending Europe's alternation of aggression and revenge, greed for wealth and space, anarchy and tyranny. On the centenary of his birth, Pope John Paul II said De Gasperi's goal of European Union provided Europe itself with a sense of a spiritual and historic mission. The Christian Democrat parliamentary group, only 2 seats short of an absolute majority, was formally established in June 1953. With the signing of the Treaty of Rome in 1957, the Joint Assembly evolved into the Constituent Assembly of the European Community. Robert Schuman himself became the first president of a forum which would soon call itself simply the European Parliament. The formation of political groups made it possible, Schuman said in his inaugural address, to develop a European outlook and to transcend national issues right from the start. The 78 national delegates were there to represent their countries, not some new idea of Europe, but in practice most, whether from our group or socialists or liberals, were convinced by the Christian democratic idea of European construction and a more central role for the Assembly. With the signing of the Treaty of Rome, the Assembly became the democratic forum for what were by now 3 European communities: coal and steel, Euratom, the European Atomic Energy Community, and the EEC. Christian Democrats played a major part in drawing up all the treaties which created them. Numerically and politically, these were the men who dominated the early years, providing most of Parliament's presidents. The European Parliament progressively found a distinctive voice, a subversive one, as some national capitals saw it. French Senator Alain Poher went on to become President of Parliament, and for a few weeks in the turbulent spring of 1969 and again in 1974, President of France. He pushed for a political union in Europe, a union which went beyond a purely intergovernmental union of states. Ahead of the direct European elections in 1979, the Christian Democrats established the first of Europe's transnational parties, the European People's Party. It is even now the only real European party. At the party's founding congress were several figures destined to make a mark on European history, among them the young German party leader Helmut Kohl. Christian democracy was to evolve over the next quarter century to encompass the whole spectrum of the political centre and centre-right. The European Parliament was its pan-European arena. 1979 marked a coming of age for the Parliament. The number of deputies had risen to 410. With the arrival of the UK, Denmark and Ireland, there were now 9 instead of 6 member states. Perhaps more important, the direct elections gave Parliament the teeth it had long demanded. Its powers fell short of its ambitions, but it was a start. Before the year was out, what was now called the EPP Group, under its chairman, Egon Klepsch, had flexed its muscles, voting for rejection of the European budget. Long before the collapse of communism, the network of Christian democratic parties and leaders has been invaluable in easing the transition to democracy, as with Greece only just free of a military junta in 1981. Parliament's ambitions continued to grow, but the run-up to the second direct elections of 1984 saw the birth of the term Eurosclerosis. Portugal and Spain, relatively poor then, were about to join. Germany and the UK both had financial grievances. The real problem, as Klepsch and the Christian Democratic Network saw it, was a democratic deficit. That was the logic behind the group's support for the draft Treaty on European Union. The new principle of co-decision applied to 15 areas of policy. Freedom of movement, people, goods, services and capital, making the Maastricht Treaty a workable reality, was a major group preoccupation in the early 1990s. But the European Union was to grow more rapidly than anyone expected. A special summit was held in Strasbourg and accepted the principle of German reunification. And in 1990, the EPP Party Congress in Dublin agreed on a paper calling for a federal and democratic constitution for Europe. The group's new leader, Leo Tindemans, oversaw an opening out to non-Christian democratic traditions. 32 British Conservatives, along with 2 Danish MEPs, became allied members. The group expanded further as deputies arrived from sister parties in Sweden, Finland and Austria. Parliament was now 626 strong. The new group chairman, Wilfried Martens, who was also leader of the party, opened a conversation with the other Europe outside the EU, which has continued and now includes deepening contact with Islamic leaders. As the 1999 elections approached, members of the EPP group pushed again to reject the Commission's accounts. One of the most notorious aspects concerned contracts awarded by French Socialist Commissioner Edith Cresson. The Commission resigned en masse. A proper independent European anti-fraud office, OLAF, was set up at the EPP group's initiative. This affair coloured the 1999 election campaign. President José María Gil Robles said Parliament would for the first time be seen as vested with great powers, powers it was not afraid to use. The group achieved its best result ever. Once the youngest elected member, the German CDU deputy Hans-Gert Pöttering became leader of the EPP-ED group. His central concern, with accession negotiations already started, was the shape of the future union and making it workable and effective. At the EPP's Berlin Congress, it was agreed that a European convention was needed to produce a draft treaty for the new enlarged Europe. Chaired by Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, the convention sat for a year and a half. Vice chairman was former Belgian Prime Minister Jean-Luc Dehaene, a staunch Christian Democrat. Spanish MEP Inigo Mendes de Vigo from Partido Popular was chosen to represent Parliament. The Presidium included other EPP luminaries. Michel Barnier represented the Commission, former Irish Taoiseach John Bruton, national parliaments, and the first Prime Minister of independent Slovenia, Alois Peterle, was chosen to represent all the applicant countries. German CDU Deputy Elmar Brok chaired the EPP-ED caucus within the convention. The EPP-ED group ensured that the deadline of May 2004 could be kept so that all 25 EU countries could join in the June elections. In Europe, the visionaries have often turned out to be the realists, as Helmut Kohl, the former German Chancellor, often observes. Thanks to them, the EPP-ED group has a rich heritage to hand down to the next generations of a united Europe. 50 years of building not just a new and better arrangement on the ruins of war, but a union of values, a people's Europe which will soon embrace all European citizens.